Namaste. Good morning to everyone, and welcome to this session by Clear Meat, this seminar by Clear Meat on sustainable meat, cultivated meat solutions. I'm very happy here to be moderating this with my eminent panelists joining us from Mumbai and from UAE, Mr. Abdur, and Mr. Ahmed Khan. So before I introduce my panelists to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, it's going to be a very, very exciting conference. It's going to be a very exciting discussions because we are going to talk about the myth. We're going to talk about the actual awareness. We're going to talk about the actual future. We're going to talk about how cultivated meat is going to be the future, how it's going to progress, what are the costs, or what are the way forward that we are seeing in this industry. And to talk about this is we have people who have been being associated and being studying this industry very closely. And it's very important with the changing of time, we should understand how sustainability will play a clear role and a very crucial role. I'm very thankful to Clear Meat for giving us this opportunity and giving me this opportunity to host this panel discussion. And without any further delay, let me first welcome our guest joining us all the way from United Arab Emirates, Mr. Ahmed Khan. And Mr. Khan, welcome to the show. Welcome from all of us in India. Welcome from all of us, the viewers who have joined us globally. Firstly, my question to you will be a small bit of introduction and your view on the sustainable meat seminar, this awareness seminar, this conference that we are doing, the seminar that is going to many people across the globe. How do you see that? Over to you.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. Thank you to the Clear Me team for organizing this panel session as well as this wider event. Like Ravi mentioned, my name is Ahmed Khan, and I'm the founder of Agri. Agri is a news and market insights platform focusing on the future of food with cell agriculture. So from cultivated meat or cultured meat all the way to precision fermentation, we track all the different companies and researchers around the world working on this technology, and we share our insights through the weekly Agri newsletter, as well as through reports and other services on the Agri platform. In terms of the importance of cultured meat and communications around this field, it's going to be absolutely necessary for the viability of this field moving forward. Consumer awareness to help them understand not just what this field is, but how it works and why it matters. It's going to be really important moving forward for the industry to have people being on board with this new concept. It's going to be really important to help raise awareness of this field to consumers all around the world and different strategies the field will need to explore in order to address that. So looking forward to this session and having more conversations about that.
Thank you, Mr. Khan, for your opening remarks. Abdur, over to you, joining us from Mumbai. Your view on this particular awareness seminar, this particular concept of cultured meat, this particular concept of how this is going to be adopted, especially in our Asian subcontinent.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for having me on the panel, and thanks to the Clear Meat team for inviting me as well. Let me say a couple of words about my background and what brings me to this panel. I'm a scientist entrepreneur, and I've been at the interface of industry, academia, translating deep tech, particularly in biotech, healthcare, life sciences, over the last 10 plus years, which brings me to IIT Bombay, where I'm playing the role of running a translational research entity, which is known as Wadhwani Research Center for Bioengineering. It is funded by the Wadhwani Foundation, which is a global foundation, whose vision is to create high-value jobs through entrepreneurship. But it's a center for bioengineering, which means that the founder sees the potential, enormous potential, for the next wave of industries to come from bioengineering, the use of biology to engineer everyday products, from vaccines to therapeutics to meats, to any type of material that can be manufactured through biology. So that's what the center does. We're mostly a funding agency, facilitation agency. Deep tech funding in India is still low compared to global peers, low to the order of about 2 orders of magnitude, right? And when we speak of clear meat, there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, one is, how can technology solve? And much of the activity that is happening today, a lot of the funding that is going into this is for technology development, because technology doesn't exist, or it's still in its infancy, to solve this problem. First of all, a product has to be created. But just because a product is created does not mean it's going to sell itself. I mean, for instance, AI has been around for the last 2 decades. If Microsoft hasn't spent a lot of money on marketing and raising awareness, I mean, literally the world woke up overnight to AI with ChatGPT. But these type of softwares have been existing for a while. But what's changed is it's come into public awareness. Food is one of the fundamental things about human existence, and we are looking at changing something that has been around for millennia, and that is going to take a lot of awareness. And a lot is spoken about different attributes of whether it's the price or the texture or this or that. There is also a hierarchy. I think without price, the other two are non-negotiable. So if we don't cross the price barrier, it doesn't matter how good the texture is. It will still have a market, but there is going to be a very niche market. But our goal is to get this to everyday, replace the animal protein completely. So stop the usage of animals, live animals, for this, for human food consumption. That takes a lot of awareness building, which is part of what we are doing today. Ravi?
Thank you, Abdur. Thank you. And staying on with you, Abdur, now, since you have spoken a big background about it, and the same question I'll be taking over to Ahmed also. There are 2 things I wanted to combine, and I wanted you to tell to the audience or make the audience aware. Number one what has led to this industry? What has led to this industry? And what is the difference between a conventional chicken meat versus cultivated chicken meat? Can we go a little basic? So this question I'll request Abdur to start, and then Ahmed to carry on.
Sure. So the technical details of it, I'll leave Ahmed to do, because I think by way of expertise is probably a lot deeper than me. So my understanding is, even today, nature is the largest producer in the world. Like vegetables and all kinds of things that we eat. Nature is the largest producer. Over the last 3 decades, and if I could trace it back, I would say the formation of Genentech, and those type of techniques, editing techniques, genetic manipulation techniques, gave us the biological tools to be able to create what in the lab, what nature creates outdoors, right? So chicken is an animal, and how do you recreate what nature has done in a lab? We have begun to develop these tools over the last 2-3 decades, and the cost effectiveness has come to a point where it's even become a point of discussion, right? For instance, vaccines are being manufactured, but that's a very different product. That's a very different price point. Gene editing is now in the market. Some of these therapies are $4.5 million for a single therapy. It's a one and done. So, we don't speak about the price that much. But when it comes to things that are manufactured for human consumption, price becomes a critical point. But from the technology perspective, I think what has led us to even think about such a solution is the development of a vast array of tools for biomanufacture. We started with how do you convert plant biomass, which is waste, which is burnt off today, into usable, sugars and so on and so forth, feed materials. And I think for the cell culture technology per se, like whether it's bacterial cell cultures or mammalian cell cultures, they were used to produce biologics, which was a natural transition from small molecules or purely synthetic drugs for human consumption for treating different types of diseases. In my mind, that was the origin. So if you can produce biologics from cells, what else can you produce from cells? We began to ask that question, and it emerged to us that there is a larger market here, there is a larger need, and obviously not only is there a larger market, but there is also a good ethical reason for us to be able to do it. But that itself, I don't think will lead to adoption. For instance, we know that we've had polluting power production industry for a very long time. So, global warming, we face the consequences of this in our everyday lives. But solar industry has been around for the last 2-3 decades. Just because it has been around hasn't meant that it has led to adoption. Price is still today continues to be a critical point in solar adoption. My view is that we have a very strong ethical concern to move towards this particular industry, but that ethical concern itself will not lead us to adoption. Price will play a critical point. And to a large extent, it is technology that is going to bring down the prices, my view.
Ahmed, your views on the same?
Yeah, I can carry on some of the ideas mentioned right now. You also asked about how is cell culture or cultivated chicken going to be different from conventional chicken. To briefly break down the science of how, let's say, cultured chicken is going to be made, scientists or startups in this ecosystem are going to take a few cells of interest from the animal, let's say a chicken in this case, and from those cells, there'll likely be stem cells within this sample. And to keep it brief and simple, scientists and startups then in the ecosystem take those stem cells of interest from the animal and grow them in a nutrient broth to help them believe they're still inside the animal. And in that way, the animal cells, stem cells, can become what they naturally would within the animal, in this case, meat. So if this process gets mastered and companies become experts in this process, the end product will be exactly the same under the microscope. Chicken meat, in this case, grown directly from animal cells directly instead of raising a whole animal for it. And that's the goal that companies are going to be working towards in terms of making the products indistinguishable from the conventional product. Now, in the interim, many companies have discussed the idea of using plant-based components or ingredients to help match some of these taste and texture aspects that they're working towards, and also to address this point of cost that Abdur mentioned right now. In terms of the ideas of why this field is needed and what's some of the impetus behind it, Abdur really touched on it. The demand for animal livestock products is going to nearly increase by about 70 to 100% between the years 2020 and 2050. In order to maintain livestock production in a sustainable way, to help get these livestock animal products, we need more solutions out there. And cell agriculture, in this way, cultivated meat, it's going to be one of those solutions. Abdur highlighted the idea of animal welfare and ethical concerns. By removing animals directly from the whole process and just requiring animal cells, you obviously would need less animals in the process to make the same amount of animal products, in this case, meat. In addition, this field has the potential to reduce the environmental impact of producing animal products. The research is still out there on what it would exactly look like at large scale, but companies around the world are claiming that if they use renewable energy resources, the amount of carbon emissions, the land use, the water use may all come down dramatically compared to conventional animal meats. When it comes to chicken is actually one of the most energy efficient animals we farm. So the energy aspect of conventional chicken compared to cell cultured chicken or cell cultured meats is still out there, but scientists and companies believe that if they change to renewable energy resources, we may be able to address the energy efficiency there as well. There are other ideas on the environmental side that the field would address as well. Acidification, fine particle formulation, as well as more efficiencies in just producing meat products from feed ratios, for example. And then, of course, there's also the health implications as well. By removing the animals from the production process in general, you can avoid interactions from animals and let's say some of these pathogens associated with animal agriculture that can come into our food supply sometimes. And of course, there's a fourth reason as well that's got a bit more attention as well since 2020, and the idea that by removing animals from the production process, you can remove the association between livestock agriculture and our food system to a wider extent, which may have some implications over there. So those are generally some of the reasons why companies are looking into this field in general and why there is a need for more sustainable practices in our livestock system that cell agriculture could address moving forward.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you so much. And we're very happy, ladies and gentlemen, to inform that Annette joins us in this fantastic seminar all the way from a beautiful country, Finland. So Annette, that's how we greet in India, by saying namaste. And
Namaste.
Welcome to this sustainable meat seminar. And in fact, we missed taking your initial statement, initial views. So there are two things, Annette, I want you to talk about as an opening remark. Number one is, as you're aware, Clear Meat is doing this fantastic awareness program on the futuristic meat consumption which is going to take place. Either we have to move, when we have to think of moving towards sustainability, which is lab grown meat, to the current scenario where people are thinking, will we be really moving towards it, and how do these kind of seminar helps? So Annette, your opening remarks with your introduction.
Yes, I haven't prepared for this, so like I see that all the others have really well prepared, but I haven't, because I haven't been really clear what we are going to talk about, and therefore I can introduce myself and I can talk about my ideas, and then I can go for my opening.
Please do
Yes.
that. Please do. We want
Yes.
it to be very, very simple. Yes.
Yes, I have experience in working for a plant-based industry for last 6 years, and in Finland we have developed a couple of products called pulled oats, for example, which I was taking for all around the world for last 5 years, and that is a revolutionary plant-based product because it has also very good amino acid profile, and what we actually experienced in the market was a lot of obstacles, because first of all, the plant-based price was a little bit too high compared to meat, and then the second was that people were not used to cook it in the same way than the meat, and so building a habit for the plant-based price was equally difficult than the price factor. And we have worked really hard in Europe with all the officials that we can change a little bit of the current political support system in the way that we can have the price parity. And that was kind of like our hardest part, to find a price parity, because we know that a lot of consumers would choose a plant-based meat instead of real meat if there was a price parity. But because there's a store chains, the retail chains are actually one of the most demanding ones, because they are adding at least 50% margin to the plant-based meats, because that's a minor category and they don't get big profits from there. But for example, they selling minced meat for 1 to up to 9% margin. It means that minced meat is always very cheap and plant-based meat is always very expensive. So that was kind of like a very, very demanding situation because the retailers didn't want to support that way. So we saw there also a light. There were few smaller retailers who saw that, okay, this is a possibility for them. So they started to work towards and lower the price.
Can I ask you one thing?
Yeah.
Annette, can I ask you one thing? I still have a bit of a doubt here because my other two panelists were also giving their views. Do you think it's the pricing which will make us shift from a normal meat to a cultivated meat?
Definitely, because that's what that's the biggest, and that's what we learned, that the cultivated meat, that would be my maybe next one, but the cultivated meat is equally interesting product than plant-based meat for the consumers. They don't have too much doubt about it, and all the consumer behavior studies what we did, it was always considered quite interesting. Of course, there are also different consumer groups who have different doubts, as we know, and so yes, maybe a little bit more, but the price is still the biggest factor, and we don't see here, at least here in Finland, that for another let's say 6-7 years, 2030, we might be able to get the price as low that it's for the humans really reachable, but not currently, no.
So you see 2030, you see 7 years.
Yeah, or even longer, but that's the minimum what we.
Abdur and Ahmed, I quickly want a very short time on this particular. Do you think pricing will be a factor, and what is the time frame that you give it? For example, Annette says 6 to 7 years or even longer for it to match the parity on the pricing part. Abdur, to start from you.
Sorry, can I continue? I don't say that the parity will happen in 6 to 7 years, but I say that in 6-7 years, we can have the price lower that the people can really buy it, because currently all the prices are so high that you cannot have it as a food. But the parity is
I get it.
Going longer. Yes, the parity will take longer. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Abdur, your views
Sure.
on this?
Sure. I think my view is that, market penetration is a stepwise process. For instance, if you look at grocery consumption, there is obviously the Walmarts and Kroger's and so on and so forth. But you also have this whole food store, which is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The whole vegan food industry is a very large one. So it's a stepwise function. And I think the way to measure the market adoption of a particular product is, let's say, for instance, the whole food segment. Will cultured meat or plant-based meat get 50% market access for the whole food type of audience? I think that's how we should measure it, because in the supermarket, when you're competing with really low price products, that might take longer. But I think a good indicator or good benchmark of market adoption is among the premium segment. How many are willing? Because the premium segment also tends to be more open to and amenable to change and adopting things like vegans and so on and so forth. I think that's the segment, that's the benchmark segment. So the moment it gets to about, say, 70-80% penetration, where to that audience, price is really not an issue. And then we talk about texturing and other things. Likewise, I think the plant-based or cultured meat industry shouldn't try to be everything for everyone. I mean, let's just go after first the minced meat type of a segment, where the texturing and all those complexities are not there. Because to recreate what nature has created, it's really going to take a very long time. I think it's probably more than 10 years and so. So I'm not talking about the cuts and so on. just the minced meat or that type of a segment where the texturing and all that is not an issue at all. It should be a stepwise, and particularly I think for startups, there has to be very clear focus. We will not touch certain things for the next 10 years, because if we try to be, resources are constrained. If we try to be everything for everyone, you end up burning resources. And sometimes success is not only do you have the technology. For instance, one of the famous case studies is Apple launched the iPhone in the 1990s in the form of Apple Newton, but they had to pull it back from the market. The market wasn't ready. The internet wasn't there. The data plans and prices just weren't ready. And we spoke about how the solar industry has been struggling for a long time because of price issues. So market penetration, the startup company should also think about how long can they survive in this market until things sort of figure themselves out, or somebody else figures it out for you, and so on. I think longevity is going to be extremely critical for this type of an industry. And it should be stepwise, both in terms of market penetration, start from the top, target the most premium segment, and then start to penetrate down. And also in terms of technological complexity, start from the simplest ones, simplest problems to tackle, and then build up complexity as you go. That's my view.
Yeah, completely agree with that, Abdur. You addressed quite a few areas that the field's really working towards right now. You mentioned the idea of focusing on specific technologies first, as opposed to trying to address all in the same go. And that way, nearly all the companies in this cultured meat space are looking to produce some more type of a ground meat product, whether it's from seafood cells or even from chicken or beef cells, for example, to address the texture concerns and making something more like a steak, for example. Addressing ground meat right away can address some of those scaffolding or texture concerns that companies could address later on once they have that first product on the market. Similarly, yeah, just this idea of the premium products, that's something all these companies are really going towards for their initial launches. Target that high-end market, that high-end audience, so they can at least have the initial market entry at that higher price point for that smaller audience size. And eventually, as they can scale up production down the road, then they can explore coming down that price point to wider audiences. And that way, I think the price point conversation for this field will be still down the road. Looking at this field in 5-year timelines, let's say 2024, 2025, this initial 5-year period will be as companies launching into, let's say, higher end premium restaurants. And then eventually, as scale gets wider, the next 5-year timeline, let's say, companies can enter the more same nice restaurants, perhaps less high end, so it'd be more accessible to the field. And then eventually, as that scale becomes massive and down the road, if this field has found ways to address those scaling challenges to be widespread, and through that larger scale come down to, let's say, price parity with conventional chicken meat, then you can have that more widespread distribution in all these type of grocery retail stores. This is quite a longer timeline than people talk about, but that's how at CellAgri we're envisioning it. As the field scales up from pilot now to demonstration and eventually large scale down the road, these price points will start to be addressed, starting right now with the high price point, the high end restaurants, the two cultivated meat companies that have launched products in the past, Eat Just in Singapore and the US, as well as Upside Foods in the US. They all launched with great restaurant and chef partners at high end restaurants to reflect the cost point right now of these products. But eventually, as it goes down, the price goes down, the product will go to a wider array as well of restaurants and food partners.
So, gentlemen and lady Annette, now I have a point to raise here to all my panelists. Now let me take you all to a different questions, and I want an answer to this. While all three of you are talking of this meat replacing the conventional meat is only when the pricing part comes in, I have two questions to ask. Is sustainability not playing any role in adoption? You mean to say, is the economics or the pricing playing a role? That's point number one. Number two is safety not playing any role? Are we not talking of the customers today are very much aware, they're ready to spend, Annette, for any good quality food, the cost. Do you mean to say even if the price is high and it is an example of sustainability, it is an example of good quality meat, yet pricing will be the from all of you, starting from Annette. Annette, you're on mute. Annette, you're on mute.
Sorry, I heard the first question fully, but the second one I didn't hear fully. That the safety, what was the safety? No, it's cutting really badly. Can you hear me? I start with the first question. I hope the internet gets better.
Question is, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can, yeah.
Can you hear me? What I'm trying to say is safety not a parameter, is only how safe this cultured meat will be rather than the pricing, because people are ready to pay anything for a good quality food product.
Yes, yes, naturally, yes. Of course, the price is. No, so of course, the sustainability is playing a huge part in the adoption, but it's also big question how the marketers are going to do it, because it's kind of not currently, if the price is too high, even with the premium groups, the sustainability plays, of course, a very important role, but it won't go to the masses without the first right pricing and then right messaging, because we need to educate, like we have been referring for the solar power earlier, so I used the same. So it's been like a 30 very heavy marketing years for the solar power, and people are aware about it, but and everybody knows that how the traffic industry is causing like a lot of emissions, and how the electric consumption is causing a lot of emissions. But how many knows that actually the food is the highest? If you look, it's higher than the traffic industry. So people don't know this. So I mean that in the sustainability level, we have to do a lot more. We have to talk wider and message very clearly for the people.
That's a beautiful message, and that's a beautiful thing that you have said, that the GHG emissions that is coming out of agriculture of food is higher than what we are seeing in the automobile industry. That's a very good takeaway. Quickly, Ahmed, your views on this, what I said about, is economics going to play a vital role, or sustainability, or the quality of food?
Yeah, I think all those ideas are going to be really important for the field moving forward. Let's cover the idea of food safety. Food safety and regulation around to ensure food product safety is absolutely paramount for this field, as it is with any novel food technology. Consumers need to have trust that these products are safe and healthy, and making sure companies working on these products go through the appropriate and right government regulation pathways and frameworks to ensure these products are safe is going to be really important. It took, for the first products that came out right now from culture meat companies in Singapore and the US, these companies worked with government regulators for years to ensure that their products are safe. The whole production process has been reviewed and verified by experts to make sure that these products are, one, safe for production, also safe for consumers down the road. It's having such stringent regulatory pathways that companies need to apply through and help ensure consumer trust that these products can be produced in a safe way and will be safe for consumption, similar to conventional meat products. So food safety is going to be paramount for this field. And it's going to be important for companies to work with good governments to ensure that they meet their frameworks for food safety, to also help build consumer trust in the products down the line. You also mentioned this idea of sustainability and how that impacts consumer food choices. Concerning the impact of our food system on the climate, many consumers are on board with the idea of trying different food products like cultured meat in the future for its sustainability applications. At the same time, sustainability alone, as some consumer surveys have shown, is not enough. The taste is going to matter. the cost is going to matter. Sustainability is a great way to get someone through the door, but to keep them coming back for more products, for example, the taste and the cost is going to be very important.
Thank you. Thank you. Abdur, quickly.
Sure, Ravi. So, I mean, in my view, there are two broad classes of obstacles for adoption. One is technical, and the other one is behavioral. On the technical side, I would say safety is a technical. I mean, it eventually has to go through safety regulations like any other industry. So I think we will overcome that obstacle. But on the point of whether sustainability alone is going to drive it or is going to be a key factor, it will be a key factor. But 70% of the world's economies are consumption-driven economies. One of the reasons we have a climate crisis today is because goods are cheap and nobody paid the environmental price for producing those, right? So yes, sustainability is a good intention, but intentions don't translate to actions on the ground. So we have seen that again and again, right? So I think from that perspective, it is really going to be, for instance, we are in India, we've seen those live chicken trucks that transport live poultry. Every time I see a truck like that, it just bothers me. Why the hell would you do something like that to that? I mean, eventually you're going to consume it. Then it dawned on me that the reason they do it is because if you don't transport the live bird, you would have to have cold chain. That drives the economics of it. So the cost is being paid by the bird, right? So in animate industries like shoe production or t-shirt production, the environment itself directly pays the cost. Nobody pays for it, and that's been passed on as a margin to the profiteers. But here, the animals pay the price, the extra margin that is taken by the producers. So those are my views.
Thank you, Abdur. Thank you. And we've got some questions, very interesting questions coming from our viewers. So I'll give each one of you one question to answer, because some beautiful question bases your inputs and bases your thought process that our viewers wish to ask, and our viewers are continuously sending me this message. Annette, it starts with you. The first question that one of our viewer is asking is, how conscious are the consumer, or what do you think about green consumerism? So when you think about sustainable or the lab grown meat replacing the old traditional meat, so how conscious are the consumers?
They are very conscious in that sense, because it's a totally new field for the people, and they are still thinking about, of course, as the gentleman earlier, sorry, I forgot the name. It's not a good morning here in Finland, but yes. he mentioned that I'll start again. He mentioned
basically what I wanted was your personal views on the percentage of people who will be seeing or who are seen as a green consumers, or consumers who are focused on these kind of meat, as per you. It's purely your view.
My view. The green consumers are very interesting group, because in every consumer survey we are doing, I would say that most of the people would really like to be green. That's not the issue. And they are consider themselves that they are green consumers. But then the price is always there, and kind of neglecting the choices. And the second thing is, of course, the taste. If the taste is unknown, or if it's a little bit, if it's not close enough for the people what they have used to taste, then they are also very suspicious. So the price and the taste are, of course, making the green consuming issues much more difficult. Even if you want to be like deep inside as a consumer, you want to be very green, but things has to be right for you before you do the thing. And with the cultivated meat, it's also such an unknown path that it's going to be very difficult. People are kind of accepting it quite easily. Of course, they are suspicious, but at the same time, they see that it is the right movement to the green consumption?
Just to add on to that answer right now, I think on the idea of talking to some of these green consumers who may be more early adopters of a novel technology like this, the communications framework around that's going to be really important, right? It's not just breaking down the technology in terms of the 1, 2, 3 steps in terms of how a meat product is produced directly from cells, but also breaking down the why behind it, right? Breaking down the, companies and scientists are working on this field for sustainability reasons, for public health implications, for animal welfare, and possibly food security applications as well. It's about bringing that whole picture as well to help bring those early green consumers on board. Context is everything, and with food, it matters so much more.
Abdur, your view? You're on mute, Abdur.
Are we on the topic of sustainability? Because I did make a comment on that earlier.
Yes, yes, yes.
Could you repeat that question? Sorry, I missed that, Ravi. Sorry.
I was asking, there will be customers who will sustainable product. They will be the first targeted segment. Yes. The ones who can be termed as the green consumers. They will not see the pricing be one of the start point for this lab-grown meats.
Yeah. So I think it comes back to what I mentioned, the premier grocers, for instance, the Whole Foods, and that segment is a clear target audience. But even they have a benchmark for what they would like to pay. I don't think anybody is willing to pay any amount of money because I'm environmentally conscious. Even they have price benchmarks and so on and so forth. I think we are getting comfortably close to those customers. The technology should keep pushing that line. Even there, we need to make sure, and those are, by the way, the Whole Food grocers and other premium markets like that. They're also high margin. It's not like their production costs are high. They do have some additional costs, but they're also very high margin businesses. So to be able to supply to them and be economically sustainable, we also have to price our products that make it, healthy margins for them as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, quickly, the final side, your view on this conference, sustainability conference, your closing remarks, I think quickly we can have. Abdur, to start from you.
Sure. So in closing, Ravi, I would like to say that the fact that we are having this conversation today is a healthy sign that we have made a lot of progress when it comes to animal-free proteins, culture, and plant meats. But there's still a long journey ahead. And that's what we learned from other businesses like solar businesses and other deep tech businesses. A lot of technology complexities are there. A lot of economics has to work together. And I think any company or entity involved in this activity has to really gear themselves to make it happen. We have to go with a mindset to make it happen rather than let's wait and watch if it happens. Then I think longevity becomes extremely important, especially for the startups and research-focused folks. My advice has always been break down the problem to very, very simple aspects and do them well, solve them really well. For instance, just in the technology chain from media to production processes and stuff like that, a lot of companies that I know are trying to handle too many things. The complexity in each one of these steps is large, and just solving that one sliver of a problem is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I think technologists should really work on, and this is one of those fields like solar, like electric vehicles. This is a very tech-heavy field. So 70 to 80% of the solutions are going to be driven by technology. When technology has enabled the right environment, then the policy will come into play and be able to say that, you would need, for instance, you mentioned about sustainability. Sustainability as a byproduct of benevolent human nature has limited shelf life, but sustainability as coming from mandates from government that, you must actually do it this way. This is the procedure. This is the protocol. As a regulation, it is much stronger. We will get there. But I think now a lot of the job still is in the hands of technologists. And any funding will be helpful. A lot of funding needs. So I see a lot of funding goes to industries, startups, but I think a lot more funding needs to go to academia to create the technical tools and other aspects to solve these problems. So those are my views.
Thank you, Abdur. Ahmed, very quickly, in very short time, because we are running out of time, your closing remarks, especially on this conference, and also final words.
Sure thing. When we look at the bigger picture of the cultivated meat, cell culture meat ecosystem, the first companies were founded less than 10 years ago. The field is still relatively brand new. While companies working on all these technical scaling challenges right now, from the media to cell lines to bioprocessing, in the bigger picture, consumer acceptance and consumer trust are going to be the biggest things for this field's viability. And in order to do that, events like this, webinars like this, where we're talking about consumer trust, raising awareness of the field, is going to be really important moving on. In bigger picture, instead of just mentioning how this field works from the technology, it's also important to explain the why. Why are we doing this, and why does it matter to develop a sustainable food system down the line? In the bigger picture, that's going to be really important for the field.
Thank you, Ahmed. Annette, all the way from Finland, your closing remarks and your views on this kind of initiative.
Yes, I agree with the gentleman. It's a long journey ahead. I try to summarize it in the way that first, of course, the product development has to be correct, and so before maybe that it's a funding, then the product development has to go right. Then everything is about the scalability, how effective we can do it in order to make it price-wise interesting, and follow the regulations. And then last but not least is the marketing communication to gain the public acceptance, as just said earlier. I think we all agree that this is very, very interesting. It's definitely needed in the world, and it will help us all to consume much more sustainable and cut our emissions.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It was wonderful hosting you. And let me tell you, all of you have given a good insight that I'm going to take. Annette, fantastic insight, especially on the pollution that is being created. That's very good input that I think the audience will have. Abdur, I think a very good input that even the academia should be funded. Ahmed, a very, very nice input on the sustainability part, your views on that. It was wonderful hosting all of you, all three of you. Yes, from UAE to Finland to India. And I hope to host you again very soon. Thank you, Clear Meat, and thank you all of you. And looking forward for more of this long discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.